A new California law would allow an unlicensed trainee or intern to take a child as young as 12 out of their parents' home without parental consent. I'll tell you why this is part of a larger, dangerous anti-parent movement in California and what we're doing to fight back. I'm Carl DeMaio, chairman of Reform California, and I've seen a lot of bad bills pass the California legislature in my time. But this one that we're going to talk about today is perhaps one of the worst, most outrageous, most offensive and dangerous bills I have ever seen, even the liberal politicians in California pass. It's Assembly Bill 665, which I think it needs to be renumbered Assembly Bill 666, because it truly is evil and it is very dangerous. The bill purports to protect children from bad parents, from child abuse. Now, look, nobody likes child abuse, and we all support tools that could be used to take children out of homes where they're being abused. There's no debate. There's no question about that. And in the state of California, like most states, we have decades and decades of legislation that give tools to social service agencies to protect the interests of abused children by getting them out of dangerous situations. Well, Assembly Bill 665 isn't about protecting children. It's about advancing a very toxic and dangerous radical social agenda. Assembly Bill 665 would allow an unlicensed trainee or intern to remove a child as young as 12 from their parents' home and put them in a residential shelter, also known as a homeless camp. They then would be receiving outpatient or inpatient treatment, mental health counseling, and parents would have no recourse, no rights to fight back. What's fueling this? Well, the LGBT radical activists say that parents are bad, parents are hateful, parents are anti-LGBTQ, and that's why there needs to be a change in law to allow a rapid, streamlined removal of a child from a parent's household. There are two changes that AB 665 makes that are particularly galling and dangerous. And I want to specifically cite the legislative text so that you understand that, you know, we're quoting directly from their proposal, because they're denying that the bill does many changes, that it's really not controversial. Well, then why pass it, first and foremost? But secondly, let's look at the changes it makes. First, what standards have to be met to remove a child currently in state law? Well, here's the language I want to read to you. It says a minor who is 12 years of age, this is current law, a minor who is 12 years of age or older may consent to mental health treatment or counseling on an outpatient basis or to residential shelter services, which means they're removed from the home, if both of the requirements are satisfied. So there's two requirements. Number one, the minor, in the opinion of the attending professional person, and highlight that word. There is a legal definition behind what is an attending professional person. But in the opinion of the attending professional person, the minor is mature enough to participate intelligently in the outpatient services or residential shelter services. In other words, at age 12, they're old enough to live on their own. They're old enough to make this very substantial adult decision. And number two, so both of these requirements. Two, the second thing must be required as well and met, that the minor would present a danger of serious physical or mental health to self or others without the mental health treatment or counseling or residential shelter services. Or B, is the alleged victim of incest or child abuse. So that is current state law. And I need to present to you current state law to let you know that there is already adequate procedures in place to protect children who are legitimately the victim of child abuse or who are in danger. And the state or the agency or the, quote, professional person making the decision, which usually is a nonprofit or private service agency contracted by the government, that they would have to make the finding that there is a serious danger to harm to themselves or others, or that there's evidence of child abuse or incest. Those findings in AB 665 are dramatically changed. And this is why this bill is so offensive. Here is the new standard that has to be met. Quote, a minor who's 12 years of age or older may consent to mental health treatment or counseling on an outpatient basis or to residential shelter services, homeless camp, if the minor, in the opinion of the attending professional person, is mature enough to intelligently participate in the outpatient services or residential shelter services. Notice what's missing there? There needs to be no documented case of abuse or danger to the child. Only that a 12-year-old is intelligent and mature enough to make the decision. Very dangerous, very reckless, and completely unnecessary. Oh, but we're not done with the damage that AB 665 is doing. Because what is the definition of this important term? In the opinion of the attending professional person. Because that's pretty important that you have someone who's expert enough, reliable enough to make that determination, right? Well, AB 665 does something quite remarkable. It changes who gets to make the decision. Under prior law, the individual had to be a registered psychologist or a licensed marriage and family therapist, a clinical psychologist, the chief administrator of an agency, a licensed clinical counselor, or a mental health care professional. All those things had to be their qualifications, certification, licensing requirements. Well, this bill expands the list of people who can make this determination that someone as young as 12 is capable to basically be put in a homeless shelter, leave their parents' home without consent, to include, quote, a trainee, quote, an intern. That's right. Trainees and interns will now be given the power under AB 665 to say a child as young as 12 is capable of living on their own. Now, they'll say, oh, hold on a second. It does say that those people have to be under the supervision of these other folks that were prior given this authority and power. What does that mean, under the supervision? That your LGBT advocacy organization has one licensed psychologist or clinical counselor on the team? That doesn't mean that the person themselves in their professional experience have made the determination, just that someone is there that has a license. But the determination can be made by someone who's an intern or a trainee. That's the law. That's what they're proposing. It's outrageous. It's reckless. It's negligent. And it's not grounded in any sort of need. The people supporting AB 665 don't have the best interest of children in mind. They don't have a case that they can point to where they say, see, laws are inadequate, we must expand. Now, these people backing this bill, they're far left activists who hate parents, and there's no other way to characterize it. They say that parents are anti-LGBT, that they're filled with hate, that they'll abuse children. There's no evidence of that. What we find is that parents are loving, but that parents that have LGBT or gender non-conforming children, they love their children, but they also want to make sure that their child doesn't make a hasty or rash decision at a very young age. And so parents are going to say, hey, I understand that you're going through a lot, that you're questioning things. You don't have to rush any decision. Let's pump the brakes. That's what a parent does. Now, if the anti-parent LGBT far left activists want to suggest otherwise, well, they can present on a case-by-case basis using existing law their case that a child somehow is being abused. But I think the risk of abuse is far greater of having an intern or trainee talk some nonsense to a young 12-year-old kid and convince them that it's best that they flee their home, leave their parents, sever that relationship. I think that's a bigger risk here. More importantly, all of these studies on gender identity show that children who have questions about their gender identity, 80% of those children resolve that question in favor of remaining their biological gender. 80%. Only a small percentage actually make any sort of transition. And many of the folks that make transitions, they do have regrets and they want to transition back. These are all documented studies. The weight of the psychological evidence is against the far left LGBT activists on this issue that children somehow should be encouraged and empowered to make these life altering decisions. Now, I'm going to stand on the side of parents, and I think most common sense people would stand on the side of parents and saying, provide these kids loving environments, support them, but encourage them not to rush it and not to make decisions when they're way too young and when they need a little bit more years of maturity under their belt. Now, that's described as anti-LGBT. But I'll tell you, I know a lot of LGBT activists as a gay Republican myself. Parents who are gay, they have their own children. Lesbians who are gay who have children, they don't support this nonsense. They don't support the crazy curriculum that they're trying to put in the classroom. And so, unfortunately, the LGBT community identity has been hijacked by some far left activists who have a very dangerous agenda. It is not anti-LGBT to oppose legislation like this and the curriculum in the classroom and these other anti-parent efforts. It's pro-child. It's pro-parent. And you can't go wrong with that. Now, this is the AB 665 bill is part of a litany of other actions in the state of California that are anti-parent. So, for example, Assembly Bill 957 would allow a parent, would penalize a parent for not affirming or agreeing to a child's claims about gender identity in deciding custody. And it would take a child away from a parent who says, hey, I don't think my child should get a surgery at this young age. If you have that belief, boom, you're out. Another bill by Senator Scott Wiener would ban foster parents from being foster parents if they don't certify that they would support a child if the child wanted to get a gender altering surgery or therapy at a young age. And then there's some good legislation that California Democrats have refused to consider. Assembly Bill 1314 would change existing school policies across the state that basically tell the teachers and other staff to keep it a secret from parents if a child is struggling with their gender identity or their orientation. Assembly Bill 1314 would simply require that school personnel tell parents, hey, your child is having some issues here. And every parent would want to know so that they can be the most supportive parent for that child. Assembly Bill 1314 was flat out rejected by the legislature, even though it is common sense and it is pro-parent and pro-child. Look, in California, the only concerns I have about child abuse are the negative effects from crazy crackpot ideas like Assembly Bill 665 and these other proposals. So in California, we're fighting to not only protect children and parents from these bad laws by blocking these laws, by creating a public outrage against these laws, by promoting knowledge and information about them. But we're also fighting to throw some of these legislators out of office that vote for crap like this. So go online to reformcalifornia.org. That's reformcalifornia.org, reformcalifornia.org. And on that site, you will find stories on these bills. You will also be able to contribute to our campaign to spread the word about these bad proposals, as well as kick some of these politicians out of office for their votes in favor of this legislation. You also can sign up to volunteer, but we need your help in this campaign to fight back, to protect children and parents. And I also encourage you to do this. The liberal media doesn't want to cover these bills by reading you the actual text or even discussing this controversy. They are trying to help out the radical far left agenda in California by censoring knowledge about bills like this that are passing through the legislature. So please share this video, sign in and comment in the comment section below, and tag your friends so that they also are aware that this proposal is winding its way through the California legal system. Working together, we can get the information out and we can defeat these crazy proposals and change California politics so that we respect the rights of parents and we protect the interests of children. Join the fight at reformcalifornia.org. Thanks for watching. Help us break through the censorship of the liberal media by liking this video, sharing it with your friends, and subscribe to my YouTube channel.